So I think three of us already been on the stage presented. But Carlos has not yet been and had a chance to present. So maybe before we dive into the topic, Carlos, maybe you can give a few words about yourself.
Okay, thank you so much for inviting on such a impressive panel. I'm really honored to be here. Half an hour ago, I found myself being Tom on the screen there. For the sake of truth, I'm
That's
Karolis.
Mistakes from product people.
Yeah, so for the sake of truth, my name is Karolis. My background and my passion is IT, but for the last 10 years, I spent in all different management roles in Vilnius Prekyba, doing a lot of stuff with their IT. So I was the one that had to take Barbora from the ground up, so basically taking eMaxima from Maxima and then spinning out Barbora. Afterwards, I acted as a CIO of Vilnius Prekyba, basically overlooking all the companies in the holding. And for the last 3 years, I was acting as a CEO of Ranmax, which is basically an IT center for everything that Maxima does.
Awesome. And we discussed yesterday with Janet that we are very humble here in Europe, because if United States Americans would present, Carlos would be American, I think he would present himself. I am the guy who was running the most successful innovation in the transforming to digital big corporate, which is Barbora.
Okay, thank you. I'm too humble, really, to present it like this myself.
If anyone knows other big innovation which is successful, run by big corporate, please tell me. I would love to dig in and share more. But so far, I know one which is not successful, which is 3 telcos created Moku, the payment company. Some of you don't even know, so... Anyway, move on. Let's move on. Let's put the American spirit of being proud of what we do.
Right.
So I think he's calling us.
I
know. You know? So, and that's great because we have such a diverse audience. So first, I was trying to look myself when people ask, what the hell product manager do? So let's deep dive into these two roles, product manager and a bit of growth, as we have shown here. So let's start with product leader, product manager, product owner, whatever it's called. And assuming you're working in digital native company, like I'll ask how you guys define that role, because if you look, there's no defined definition. Everyone, Marty Kagans has one, someone else has the other one. For example, when people ask me, I say, my job is to put a smile on a customer face. And if they pay for that smile, that's even better. So that's I think what product manager does. Sean, what if taking from the digital native startups, or as you call disruptors, what's the job of product leader there?
So I've seen it evolve a lot over the years. And again, part of the companies that I go into are generally really early stage, just as they're transitioning to product market fit. So a lot of that is just trying to deeply understand the problem they're solving, getting the solution right. But once they get to product market fit, a lot of what I'm trying to do is help them deeply understand that product market fit, quantify value, as I talked about with the North Star metric, and reframe so that it's not just a roadmap of new things to add to the product, but there's as much focus on helping customers get more value out of the product and achieve their objectives with the product. And so, but even, I would say that most even digital native companies, when I go into it, the product team is still very roadmap oriented, and a lot of them feel like we're 1 or 2 features away from never needing marketing again. This thing will explode. And so a lot of my focus then is getting everyone on the same page around customer impact is ultimately our success metric, and how do we help the customers achieve what they're going to achieve. And obviously a product team has different levers and tools to do that than maybe marketing or growth. But yeah, so it's a moving target in my experience. Unfortunately, it's not a one-size-fits-all.
Sure. We are trying to find the common ground. So, Carlos, is it the same in even successful transforming to digital or traditional companies? Or, as I was asked, they asked me, why this, what do you do? As I'm fractional chief product officer. So you are managing the backlog? that's the least part of my job to manage the backlog. Backlog as chief product officer, but product leaders in traditional companies, what do they do?
Yeah, so I probably disappoint you here, but I don't think product managers are so expressed under on average leadership in corporations, and they even are mixed sometimes with project management and project managers. And it's funny, then you go into such a company and you start asking, okay, so you have product owners and you have project managers. So for what exactly you are responsible for? And you see that they cannot even themselves to distinguish where one responsibility ends and the other starts. And just to give you something practical, if you end up in such a position and you are a product owner, first of all, sit with your project manager and write down exactly who's responsible for what. And if you are a product owner, claim the ownership. Become the small CEO of your product. Then you can start really delivering stuff.
So I'll just pay attention on the words you use. You're saying a product owner is working for project manager?
Not necessarily. I think that's exactly the thing. They cannot tell themselves. So, I mean, in terms of they try to say, okay, it's a matrix structure. So yeah, so okay, it's a matrix structure. So what's the matrix? Where is your responsibility? Where is project management responsibility? And I've seen quite often that it's not discussed, it's not clear. I mean, it's really murky, and then responsibility is lost basically.
So basically, we have the lack of definitions or misunderstandings. Cool. Janet, how about you? You've been on both sides, but you also looked at USA and now you're working in Europe. Maybe some angle there. Is product leadership role defined clearly, or as Carly says, there is every company defines this on its own, and then what's the difference between the continents, if any?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because even within Silicon Valley, there are some companies, they're defining it differently themselves. And I look at it if how much into the product operating model they are, how deeply they are taking the responsibility of a product manager to understand the needs of the customer, understand the needs of the stakeholder, understand the needs of the business, the competitors, the trends, and bring all that together. That is a very, very different role than some other organization where a product manager, as you were saying, is managing the backlog. So I think probably it's very company specific how they are looking at doing it.
So what's advice from you three? It feels this role is super murky. How to be successful in the role that's not even defined in the market properly? Isn't that true? Like, if you guys want to be successful product managers, how the hell you can be successful if company can define what you need from us?
I would say
microphone, yeah, please.
I would say storytelling is like your superpower because you are out there to win the hearts and minds of your colleagues, of even your engineers, to convince them to work on what you think they should be working on. You have to come up with what is the story of this product, of this arc, of this company, and sell that internally, externally, to partners, to stakeholders, to everybody.
And just to build on that, I think anytime there's a murky definition, that can be a big negative because nobody knows what you're supposed to do, but it can also be a positive because it gives you the ability to really understand how you want to approach it and convince everyone that this is the right way to approach this job, and that can be an advantage if you define it in the right way. If you define it in the wrong way, then you're in trouble.
Yeah, I can only build on that. I mean, first of all, as I said, so okay, if it's not defined, then you are being a product owner or product manager, you are in position to claim whatever. So use that for your advantage. This is one thing. The other thing, do not forget, and I think that's the crucial part of it. So what Janet mentioned, managing your stakeholders, but all stakeholders, all that are impacted. So especially in a corporation, it's not going to be straightforward. It's not going to be, as you expect, top-down. It's going to be different person by person. But before you even start doing anything, you have to have them aligned. So, and claim the ownership, align your stakeholders, you're set to go.
Yeah, and I would add, so sometimes I talk to people and they're like, oh, my company is a feature factory. We're not doing this product operating model. Like, woe is me, there's nothing I can do. And I'm like, there's a lot you can do in a feature factory. Go talk to some customers and come back with a point of view. Talk to your managers about what is the outcome that I am expected to achieve. And like you show up like that, and pretty soon other people start showing up with you.
So thanks. I hope all those people from more traditional companies take that as inspiration to do much more. Of course, if you're working in more startups, Wix, probably you're doing that already. So
it's not easy, but
yeah. So I encourage that. So let's jump to the other part, the growth part. Of course, we can ask Sean about this, but who is the growth leader? But Carlos, did you even use that term in Maxima or Fran Max or Barbora, like the growth manager, the growth leader, or was purely like as marketing, IT? Product?
Yeah, so actually, we never defined it in a way, as you said. We never put the label there. But I can share one example which it worked out, and actually that's Barbora's case. So when I joined, eMaxima was department in Maxima. So it was probably not even the 20th priority in the organization. That's all. So, and I mean, you can do just very little about it. Now, the structure was changed and it was made a separate entity with their brand, and with that you can experiment a lot. So basically, the CEO of Barbora became a growth manager because the clear objectives were agreed. So you know what actually the growth is. So revenue at the beginning, number of orders, blah, blah, all of that. But actually, the CEO of that spin-off became a growth manager and had to think how to spin off that company properly. It wasn't a badge, but actually he done a lot of the things that the growth manager should.
Awesome. So basically, what I'm hearing, as probably all the books would say, if you want to innovate, make some kind of format of spin-off, because if you are very small in a huge organization, you're never going to get priority. Ideal with some structure, a spin-off in some way to make success. So Sean, we heard your presentation, we talked to you a lot, but so how would you, like in one sentence, would define what's the growth leader, what's the key role?
Well, first, I would say that if you think product management is undefined, every single company has a different view. Like in Europe, growth is usually just a rebranding of marketing. In US, it's often just something else, sales. And so before I ever accept a role, I want to have complete agreement on what the role of growth is and how that's going to work. And I come in with a 90-day plan. These are the exact things that I'm going to be focused on, because if I don't do that, someone's going to make those decisions for me and point me in the wrong direction. So ultimately, to me, if I was going to define it in a narrow sense, it would be understand how customers get value from the product and work with each of the teams that are responsible for part of creating and delivering that value to ensure that they are being very systematic about increasing the value that they deliver.
Now you're mixing me, because when I come in as trying to sell myself as a chief product officer, fractional chief product officer, that's what I usually do, creating the role, giving exactly the plan, because that usually does not exist. It's marketing and technology drives. But maybe I should call myself chief growth officer. Then I could increase my hourly rate. Jokes. Okay, so let's move to the key point of these topics, and let's start from otherwise. So we said that from learning, so from each other. So let's start from what startups or digital native companies can actually learn from traditional organizations, if any. I believe there is something, and I think, Carlos, you already started talking about, so maybe just elaborate, because that point, shareholder management seems a skill that you need to master much more in a traditional company than in a high growth company?
Well, actually, if you have to manage the same way in a startup, the shareholders as in corporations, so you are already in trouble. It shouldn't be that way. I mean, for the startup, it should be way more obvious. And actually, that's the thing. I mean, the startup experimentation is more embedded into them. What actually the corporations and what you can learn from those. One is that, of course, financial discipline and thinking long term how you are going to monetize what you're building. So you're not just conquering the world, but it should have some sort of financial basis there. So I think that's one. The other thing is that, I think that when you even do a spin-off, you have time to end those iterations of experimentations way more. So you have time. Corporations have money, it buys time. That's also a problem sometimes, but actually it can be turned around and could be a positive thing. And the third thing probably I would say, once you find something and you are inside the corporation, they already have the plan how they will scale up. For the startups, I think, first of all, you have to find that golden egg. Then I'll think how to make 10 of those.
Cool. So just to summarize that, the financial planning really hit me because I think all corporations do yearly financial planning, and then for some reason forget to do quarterly. They set the goal in November, and then in next or October still following the same plan. Bizarre. While startups, you say, do the opposite. They sometimes have only quarterly planning and then forget that knowing what the longer term goals is, or even numbers are, it's actually useful. Good. You guys, what do you think? What anything to add?
Yeah, I think so. Working with startups, there's we need to sell something, otherwise we're going to be out of business really darn quickly. And it forces them to be incredibly rapid, incredibly scrappy. Like they're doing their experimentation, they're learning, they're on a steep learning curve, and that is so much fun. And I feel like when I work with corporations, I see they really understand repeatably and scalably for the long term. How do we manage growth? Not growth hacking like you do, but they have, like you were saying,
5% margin every year is good growth.
And I've met so many like smart, deeply intelligent. They go so deep in a certain knowledge area in a large corporation, whereas in a startup, I'm doing everything from the financial plan to putting together the IKEA furniture. Like we don't have that depth in that area and that richness.
Nice. Sean, anything or not?
I think startups have so much to learn from large corporations. All the things not to do. The more that, no, just kidding. Yeah, I mean, I would echo the forecasting and the discipline. In a startup, you're a little bit of a chicken with its head cut off, running around and doing so much. And to ultimately build value over time, you need to start to have some of the process and discipline, but then your risk is you become siloed and you become one of those big organizations that loses the ability to be agile. And so adopt the good things and avoid the bad things.
Exactly. Cool. And if you look practically, probably that's what happens when startups grow. They always get people from the industry because that stability is needed. As you said, especially, for example, at Revolut, we carefully looked what kind of people we're getting, because if you get that stubborn, great functional organization, that's probably not what you're looking for. We called it bankers in a fintech sector, so we don't want bankers. We want people who want to provide financial services to people. Jokes. Coming back to so then vice versa. So all the VIX people, Nord security people, Hostinger people, you learned that you can learn something from traditional companies, hopefully. Vice versa. What people that came here that are working in telcos, in banks, in bigger grocery chains, in retail, could learn from unicorns, this building, that building, product owners that working there. Who wants to start?
I'll start with just one thing. Maybe we just popcorn one thing at a time. Is just like challenge assumptions, that the longer a company's been around, the more that you just have this institutional knowledge that doesn't get challenged. And when you get fixed in your thoughts about how things work, you stop trying to find better ways and question things. And so it comes down to psychological safety, but psychological safety starts with admitting knowledge gaps and that you don't know everything. The minute you don't know everything, you start looking for new and better ways and insights on what's really happening.
So that's what Alex has mentioned. Unlearn. Be open to unlearn a few things that maybe you have been doing for 15 years and they made sense. But that's the sentence I start my training. Guys, you are way more clever than me. You did this more longer than I did, but I can share some ideas and maybe you can unlearn some things and that could resonate. So yeah, that's a good point.
I would add speed. I remember I came from a big, large company to work at a startup, and I was doing some writing for some stuff. So I wrote it up and I sent it to my boss, and I'd be like, okay. And then the next day I checked in. I'm like, so is there any feedback? Are we going to do like rounds of iteration of stuff like that? And they're like, oh no, it went live on the website last night. I was like, I'm sorry, what? So just the speed at which they are moving. And they don't get everything 100% right, but if you've got that like velocity going, you get enough right. Yeah.
But that speed comes with the probability of error. What if that text was wrong and then someone like we put a wrong photo now? Speed, last minute probably. We were doing that last evening, so.
Well, the advantage
how to manage that risk, because that's what people fear the most. Speed gives you more risks.
An unknown startup, nobody knows.
But how to manage that from the corporate perspective, like.
That's, like as a large corporate, that's why we've got like 10 rounds of review and everybody has to say it's okay, right? As a startup, like nobody, exactly. I mean, we were so small, nobody knew.
So one hack I can add, which I advise for product owners and everyone in traditional companies, try to walk the room and find those other stakeholders. Don't do the official process, do unofficial process. Because if you go to some marketing manager, probably they can find 10 minutes to review your document and make sure it's all compliance in bank, so they read it, so okay, it makes sense. At least you get that verbal yes and you check. Because yes, if you send a formal document through formal processes, you will get that formal compliance check for the page in 3 weeks earliest. So my hack is hack it through personal connections. That's how you get the speed, because otherwise I didn't find another hack in traditional companies. If you go through formal process, it will be super slow. So. Anything to add?
Yeah, so I would like to redeem a bit these large corporations.
Please do.
Trust me, they are not stupid. I mean, and they are doing things sometimes consciously for the reason. So startups are basically just to find their way to success. Those corporations probably already did that, and some of them, if they're 100 years old, probably several times. So they are playing a bit of this value preservation game compared to value creation game. So you have to take that to account. But yes, they can learn speed. And one thing that it was mentioned today over and over, embrace experimentation. Find a way how to experiment there. Probably you don't want to experiment on the whole batch of like $5 billion company, but you can still find a way how to, just make it work for corporation and also for the new business.
Yeah, if I can add, when I was working
Can you use microphone? You're recording.
When I was working with Philips on the One Blade launch, Philips was very nervous, rightly so, because it's a big company, and we're out there going to do some experimentation in the market, and they're like, "What are the brand repercussions for us?" Like, it was kind of a scary thing for them. I think the only reason they did it is they were backed up against the wall in a hard place, and we agreed to go unbranded for a while. And so they didn't have to worry about the brand repercussions.
Exactly.
And then one other thing I would add on the value preservation is that markets are moving quickly, new things are coming on, and so video rental companies, suddenly the market's changed and they need to evolve quickly. BlackBerry, I watched the movie recently, and it's just like in one day, iPhone comes out and all the assumptions on why that business was successful go out the window. And so I do think being able to keep that pulse on the market will keep you in business as well.
Yeah, so that's true. I mean, that's the part of value preservation. I mean, but to be honest, even if you know all these names right now, Google, whatever, I mean, at some point they will be 100 years old and most likely will do something that the new businesses will think that, guys, I mean, this is stupid. So that's probably different. If you take a person, so probably there's different period in life where those companies are. So they act differently, different generations, that's all.
I think the amount of time that companies are on the Fortune 500 has shrunk down
yes.
significantly.
Okay,
Yeah.
so just to be very practical, for example, the hack you said, try experimenting. I say to all product managers, product owners in traditional companies, you have such an unfair advantage because you usually have 1 million people and customers or hundreds of thousands. Selected 100, it's so easy. For startups, very often getting those first 100 might take 3 weeks, so you don't have that advantage, and then recycle if you want new data. So lots of unfair advantage. Okay, let's move to the. You want to add something? Or?
No.
To finish up, I found some memes on the internet that talk about our roles. So if we could get first one on the stage, and I'll ask participants to look, you should either see it here or on the screen. Sean, that's for you. We were listening all the day, so can you tell us what the hell is this?
It's when marketing and product have a baby, they have growth.
Is that what you are going for? So if we say growth leader, we say is a penguin with a head of elephant?
That seems pretty cool. Yeah.
Why is that still a role that you want to have?
Great.
It can drink. It can swim.
Let's move to the next one. Let's move to the next one.
Selling, good selling.
Okay, maybe go Janet for this one. You know, let's add a feature, and you add a feature. No need, of course, without asking users, and then you are lying on the side.
Yeah. And I would probably add like a weight on top of you because now that feature needs to be maintained for time immemorial.
So that's how we run the product.
In some days, yes.
Good. Let's go to the next one. Karolis, this is for you. Product manager, realistic deadlines, and then those stakeholders you talked about coming back from a back, and deadlines are not so realistic anymore.
I cannot agree on that more. But jokes aside, I mean, every joke is just partly a joke, so that's happened. So you have to look behind your shoulder all the time.
Awesome, awesome. And your advice managing those stakeholders was great. Okay, one more round. Let's go to the next one. Sean, we're data-driven. Be honest. I'm being honest. What metric are you tracking? Revenue. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I made it very clear that revenue is not the best thing to track. You want to track value, and if value's going up and revenue's going up, that revenue growth will be sustainable.
So let's be honest, tracking only revenue is not tracking the metric. Okay, next one, please. Janet, when people suggest improvements for the product, I tell them I will put it in the backlog, but never do.
I'm so guilty of this. I'm always like, oh, that's a great thing for our next iteration. Yes. Yeah, I'm guilty of this one.
Awesome. And last but not least, Karolis, a bit on the same. List all features, score each feature rise or ice, wherever, throw away everything, build feature what upper management tells you to. Anyone feels this in the room?
Yeah, it happened a few times. Yeah, but you know, it's probably not the best way to clean your backlog, burning it down. But actually, I did it a few times. You know, adding. Okay, guys, let's just scrap it. And if nobody asks it again, then it's dead. I mean.
Exactly. Awesome. Thank you very much for the panel. I hope a bit of laugh at the end was fine. And thank you.